Thank you. And I'm going to start by just answering the question that all of you always ask me first. Did I have any idea that when I wrote this article, it was going to trigger this tsunami of response? 2 million people have now read it. It is the most read article ever in the history of The Atlantic. And I now spend about 40% of my time speaking to audiences, writing, blogging, engaging around these issues. And I absolutely wanted to start a conversation, but no, I had no idea. And it would have been impossible to imagine that there was going to be this kind of response. Indeed, the week before the article came out, the Atlantic media staff kept calling the Today Show and Good Morning America, and it was a cover story, so they wanted me to get me out there. And essentially everybody but Morning Joe, where Mika Brzezinski said, yes, we do want to talk to her, everybody else said, no, we've heard this story so many times, there's nothing new to say. Of course, they changed their tune pretty quickly, but it's very important. I start with that because I think one of the first things to say here is this generation is determined to have this conversation. And this generation, the younger generation, want different answers than the answers we have all carved for ourselves. I was just talking to somebody just an hour ago, was saying, the younger women, and I think the younger men, look at us and they say, I don't want your life. Meaning, those of us who are in the workforce, who are working all the time, they say, I want a different balance. I want a different balance between work and family, but equally important, particularly this is a group of, we're all in business, I want a different balance between work and family, and I want a different balance between money and meaning. I want a different sense of what success is. Of course I want to work hard, of course I want to succeed, but all work, all the time, there's no amount of money that actually makes that worth it. And equally importantly, I want to feel that my work has larger purpose and meaning in what I do. Now, none of us can have that all the time, right? There's a lot of work that just has to get done. But you're seeing this in the corporate sector, you're seeing this in the legal sector, and you're seeing this in the huge explosion of mixed kinds of work. So social impact investing and public-private partnerships and social enterprise. All of that is actually part of the same large movement. We don't necessarily connect it if you look at young people who all want to do social enterprise, but that's the same instinct that is saying, I want a different balance. I want to be able to spend time with those I love or doing the things I love in addition to my work. So let me just start with that. Then, I'm writing a book to tell the stories of many of the women who have written to me and to focus on solutions. I had at some point to take my email off the Princeton website because my email was crashing on a daily basis from people writing all over the world. And of course, then I've done a lot of speaking, and just going on the internet, there's thousands and tens of thousands of responses. And they fall into three broad categories. And I want to talk about each of those categories, and then I really want to talk about where we go from here. And the first category is gratitude. And I always say maybe I say that's the first category because that's the one when people come up to me, they're more likely to say thank you for writing that article than, boy, that was really awful. They might be thinking something different, but by and large, the people that come up to me, who write to me, the overwhelming response I get is gratitude. It's just thank you. It isn't even necessarily, I agree with everything you said. It's thank you for opening up the conversation. Thank you for creating this space where we can have that conversation. And it's astounding the range of places I hear that. So if I go on TV to do something on foreign policy, 9 times out of 10, a young producer will come up to me, generally a woman, but sometimes a man, and say, thank you, you have no idea how tough this business is. And I really could be doing much more from home, but I'm not allowed to because it's a culture of FaceTime. Just to give you one example. Or if I am again, giving a speech somewhere at a think tank or at a corporation, people come up, and I'm, again, maybe talking about foreign policy, and say thank you and give me their version of that story. The other category of gratitude is much harder, it's just much more powerful. And these are women who write me in very, very personal terms. Indeed, I was quite honest in my article, and I sometimes feel like I've ignited a national therapy session. I really get, people feel free to write me their life stories. And they start by saying, I cried when I read your article. It's astonishing how many emails I have that say exactly that. And then they go on to tell me these stories that just break my heart. And they really are women who were trying so hard. They came out of school, they went into the workplace, they wanted to take the world by storm, and things just didn't work out as planned. And we all know that, right? You have a child, and your child either has a very difficult period. I mean, one of my sons was quite sick when he was born. Any number of things that then happen, or with respect to their job, they lose their job, or they have to transfer, or their husband does, or they lose a family network. All those things that happen to all of us, and for many, many, many women, millions of women, something in that, the first child, the second child, something in the family, they just can't do that juggle anymore. What we just saw, a couple things drop, and suddenly they find themselves in a very different place. And what these women often say is, I didn't realize when I stopped working or started working part-time or changed jobs that I was effectively disempowering myself. I was getting off the track and I can't get back on. But then they also say, and I felt like I was a failure. I thought it was my fault. I thought if I just tried harder, somehow I should be able to make it work. And when I read your article, I realized maybe it's not my fault. And thank you for making me feel better, making me realize that maybe there's a larger problem out there. Well, there is a larger problem out there. That's why we're all here. That's what has to be fixed. The next category is criticism. And it comes, there's plenty of it, I promise you. Google me. At some point this summer, I realized I don't have to sit around and read all these nasty things that people are saying all the time. But some of it's quite personal, and some of it's downright funny. The one that really amused me is the woman who wrote in the Financial Times that the real problem I had is that I'm a perfectionist, and I want everything to be perfect. I want my kids to be perfect, and my house to be perfect, and my work to be perfect. And I just started laughing. I don't even think I finished it, because I promise you, you don't even have to go into my house. You can just walk up to the kitchen window and look in, and any illusions of perfectionism, out the window. In fact, my husband and I routinely would tell our sons, we're loser parents. And what we meant by that was not we're bad parents. I mean, I think we're good parents. We certainly try to be, and I think we've given our kids all the really important things in terms of love and support and a lot of opportunity. But what we meant was, that form you're supposed to get in, the food you're supposed to bring in for International Day, the trip that you really were supposed to sign up for 3 weeks ago, we're not always going to be on top of those things. You just got to accept. We're two people, we're working flat out, we think we do the best we can, but as I said, perfectionism's really not part of this. But there's a category of criticism that I take very seriously. And there's sort of two versions of it, but it's really around your article set back the women's movement. This was a step backward. And one woman put it very, I think very crisply, where she said to me, I read your article and I was so angry. And she said, if a man had written it, it would have been great. But you wrote it and I was so angry. And I said, well, why? And she said, you waved the white flag. You said surrender. Now here I have to just say something. Many people read the title of the article, and I'm not sure they read much further, but what they thought I was saying is, nope, game's up, women can't have it all. That is not at all what I was saying. All right, what I was saying is, and we can talk in the question period about how the title got formed. I was saying we still can't have it all because we still haven't made all the changes we need to make for women to be able to have careers and families in the same way that men have careers and families. And let me just say here, many men say, we can't have it all either. I get that. If what that means is you can't have as much time with your family as you want, that's true, and that's a big part of the solution. But what I'm saying is, when a man announces that he is having his wife is expecting a child, or his partner is expecting a child, they're adopting a child, nobody says to him, how are you going to manage that? Right? The guy wasn't up here doing the juggle. Nobody says in the sense of, how are you going to juggle work and family? They just assume he's going to have a child and he's going to have his career and there's not going to be a tension. The minute a woman says that she's having a child or shows that she's having a child, it's the first question she gets asked. Indeed, Katie Couric always says, nobody asked Matt Lauer how he balances work and family. So the point is, the assumption is still, if a man has his career and then is going to have a family, nobody thinks his career is going to suffer. If a woman has a career, and note we don't talk about working fathers, we only talk about working mothers, the assumption is this is going to be in tension. So that's all I meant when I said we still haven't gotten to the place where we have equal choices around work and family. So I don't think that I am setting the cause back. I think this kind of conversation can only be good. And I think that it's sort of the mantra of therapists. You got to name it to change it. Thank you.